All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to your Tuesday night live stream of the Dynasty Heat Seekers. As you can see, we got a little bit different cast today. Myself and Leone are here again, but we have a special guest, Brad Menendez. Brad, how are you doing today?
Living the dream, gentlemen. How are we tonight?
I'm doing well. Anthony, scrambling?
I'm doing just fine.
So we tonight are going to do the first round of a 1 QB rookie draft. We'll be doing it on Sleeper. Leone's going to be running the show with that, and we're going to put our picks in, and we'll just go in order. All three of us will each go 4 times all the way to the first 12 picks to give our input on why we want these players at these spots. Feel free to comment maybe some guys that you would have preferred in those spots as well, and we're just going to dive right into it. Leone, if you want to share the Sleeper screen, and you go ahead and pick your first guy and tell us why.
All right.
Wrong.
I got to start the draft first. Let me figure this out. So thanks for bearing with me.
You can just click resume draft. And
I know. I got to change it. I forgot to make this a rookie draft. Hold up.
And we say it's a 1 QB, but really the first round, you're not drafting quarterbacks anyway.
Right.
So
right.
while
Yeah,
we get this draft ready, there's, it's no surprise that in most 1 QB rookie drafts, probably over the last 5 years, you're not seeing many quarterbacks go. Maybe Trevor Lawrence went in the back of first rounds last year, but probably not.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. With this draft class, you're going to see, I think, fewer quarterbacks even go in the first round in Superflex. I guess this depends on landing spots and things like that. A lot of people will take quarterbacks if they're ready to go year one, especially like in the back half maybe. But for this year, it just seems like Malik Willis is like the guaranteed guy to go in the first round for most people. Brad, do you think that while he's still setting this up, is there any other guys that you think will fall in the first?
So a month ago, I might have said, no, maybe not. Think about all the movement that we've had. Russell Wilson going from Seattle to Denver and Deshaun Watson going from Houston to Cleveland. Some of these moves that have happened in free agency have made me go, okay, maybe some of these other teams see something with the Kenny Pickett's or Matt Corrals of the world. When you look back, I think this draft landing spot's going to be huge as to dictating what happens, because think about the quarterbacks. There's a lot of question marks, but the top end of the wide receiver class is dealing with tons of injuries. I'm thinking Jamison Williams of the world and guys like that, Drake London. They've all got these injuries. So you can make a case that quarterbacks slide up in a super flex because of the wide receiver injuries and the weak running back class. Think about Spiller and Bryce Hall are about the top 2 running backs. And after that, some people like guys like Ford and some of these other running backs. You can make a case where they could slide down the draft board as well. It wouldn't surprise me if more quarterbacks go in a super flex first round come draft time, NFL draft time. But right now, no. Malik Willis is a surefire, but
yeah. So Jaws kind of proves my point. For right now, it's like maybe 1 or 2. Where last year we saw 5 in the first half. For a lot of people. So.
Joss saw it. I go with it because Joss is the best.
Absolutely. All right, Leone, go ahead and
all right. Let's start this draft. Let's see if this works.
Yeah, it should be fine.
Oh, it worked. Okay, so with my first pick, I get this off.
Just click off of it.
All right, with my first pick, I'm going to go with Treylon Burks, wide receiver. Everyone knows he plays for Arkansas Razorbacks.
Everybody does.
I like his size and speed. I think he has the most upside out of this group for the wide receiver position. There are some question marks, and obviously, like you guys talked about a second ago, landing spot may dictate some of these things. I mean, he could go to a bad situation, but I just think I heard there's rumors that the Eagles were looking at him. I just think that he is just a huge playmaker. And I think he has, out of all these guys, I know we're going to talk about some of these other wide receivers in a little bit, but for me, I think he offers the most upside. So I'm going to set him in.
He's probably got the best hands in the class. He's not the most polished route runner, but think about Arkansas as a whole. They don't really create the best polished route running wide receiver. So he's going to need to go to a team that has a specific set of packages that they can run him in, that he can get comfortable in and then learn more routes. Like his route tree is probably the least defined of any of the first round prospects, but he's, just insanely dynamic athlete. Like he's one of those guys that you feel really should be a surefire wide receiver 1 in fantasy at some point in the near future, but he's got to get that route running. They got to add to that route tree, and he's got to find a spot where he doesn't have to be the top guy immediately. Maybe he's the solid number 2 that becomes the number one at some point. Bryce, what do you think about Burks?
Yeah, I really like Burks. I think he's a guy that can come in and immediately make an impact on whatever team he's on, and that impact will also correspond to his fantasy impact. It's weird. He's all over the place in mock drafts, like in real mock drafts. So his landing spot, I think, is definitely important. I feel like a landing spot with any wide receiver is somewhat important. With this guy, talent, you can't just pass on talent. Talented receivers produce on teams that don't have maybe the ideal quarterback situation, and I think this is one of those guys. So I can't argue the Treylon Burks 1 overall. I'd probably take him there as well.
Yeah, so that was going to be my follow-up question. Would you guys take Burks 101 in a rookie draft? Typically, when I look at the 101, I think of a team that is maybe rebuilding. They have the first pick for a reason. They're not very good. That's when I typically want to get someone that I know, is going to be good for a long time, as opposed to getting a running back who may be like CEH, for example, and not really live up to the hype. So what do you think, Brad, about Burks at 101, or would you typically maybe go a different direction?
In one quarterback, I typically lean towards running backs because it's such the premium, but I don't blame anybody for taking wide receiver because wide receivers are going to last longer. Nowadays, though, I tend to lean more running back just because it's easier to trade for playable receivers that can fill the role and give you value. In this class, though, receivers are the best. I like Bryce Hall. I like Isaiah Spiller, and one of those two will probably be me at 2. But I love this wide receiver class, and there's so many really good, talented ones. And that's probably why I would lean running back at 1-1, 1-2, 1-3 in there because there's so many good receivers in this class. I would say easily 6 to 10 receivers that I feel confident will be in starting lineups in 3 to 5 to 7 years pretty comfortably. What about you, Bryce?
If I'm in the 1-1, and my team's terrible and I need like a lot of pieces, I'm probably trading back into the middle of this round because I think there's a lot of receivers that I like just a little bit less than Burke. I think Burke's great there right now at 1-1, and I would take him there. But I think after the draft, it's going to be
it could get shuffled up a little bit.
I think it's going to be either Olave or Jamison Williams. I think whoever Kansas City or Green Bay inevitably draft is going to go to 1-1 and 1-2 personally.
Interesting.
And I think if I'm at 1-3 and that happens and Treylon Burks is there, it just makes me even happier. I like him there in a vacuum right now. So no, I wouldn't change it.
And it wouldn't surprise me if Burks is the Devontae Adams role in Green Bay. If somebody said they took him, it wouldn't surprise me in the least.
Yeah, he'd immediately solidify that 1-1 in this format if he was taken there. But I think it's going to be closer to. I think he's going to get taken earlier, and I think it's going to be either Olave or Jamison Williams, and land into one of the prime spots, wide receiver needy teams that have great quarterback play. So
yeah, for sure.
All right, Brad, who you taking?
At 2, you pick your poison at running back. I'll go Isaiah Spiller just because, in my mind, he profiles as a 3-down back more than Bryce Hall. But it's close. If you said you liked Hall more than Spiller, it wouldn't surprise me. But give me Spiller because he's been my RB1 in this class for probably a year now at this point, as I've been looking into this class for a while. I like his vision. I like his hands out of the backfield. I like the versatility. He's not specifically a zone scheme where I think Bryce Hall's more of a zone running back. That's his best skill set. I think Isaiah Spiller could go to any team and be successful. The tough thing nowadays is you have to be in a committee, and there's no running back that really can carry the load. But if you looked at a running back that could handle it all by himself, Spiller's the one in this class. Him and Kenneth Walker are the 2 in this class that I think really have that profile as a guy that could carry the workload if they had to. So give me Spiller. I like Spiller. I like Walker. I like Hall. They're all really either one here. Yeah, it is spicy, but give me Spiller. I love Spiller out of Texas A&M.
Yeah, Brad, I think we're kind of in the same boat with this. I think Spiller and Hall are like 50-50 to me. Like I wouldn't be like any more mad if I got Spiller because Hall was taken right before me or vice versa. Because I think Spiller's got like tremendous PPR value. And again, a landing spot for these guys is probably going to be pretty important. Does one land in a spot where he could easily take over? Does one maybe have to wait a year or two? Yeah. So these running backs, it's nothing to get real excited about this year. I think you got the top 3 of the guys you were just mentioning, and then it's a kind of a pretty steep drop off for me personally. So I like Spiller at the 2. I don't know if I'd change it. I think you can draft for need at this point, but I like Spiller, London, or Hall right there. So Leone.
Yeah, my top 5 Spillers in the top 5 for rookies. They're not separated by a whole lot. I think Spiller's real good. I don't know if he's going to have a lot of touchdown upside. He's more of I don't know the right word.
A good running back.
maybe a little too shifty at times. He can catch the ball. PPR leagues, this is a PPR mock, so that's fine. That I don't have an issue with that. But is he going to be an every down type back? I don't think so. I think he's going to be more of a complement back. Not that he's going to get like Naheem Hines. I think he'll be on the field more than that. He's a really, talented player. But that's my only concern with him. With that said, I think it's a good pick. I'm not going to argue against it. Again, he's in my top 5 of rankings, but that is my concern with him is that he won't have an every down back type role.
So maybe like a James White.
Yeah, that's a very good
comparison.
That's a very good comp.
Saying. Yeah. And James White has been extremely valuable in fantasy leagues. You wouldn't take him in the 1 probably, but as a very solid flex option when he's healthy.
Yeah.
And if he goes to a place like Houston, like Chris is saying in the chat, he would be their top back. Think about what they've been doing. David Johnson, they signed Marlon Mack. You bring in a rookie like Spiller, he takes the backfield over. He's just so much of a much better athlete. Obviously, they'll work the veterans in. Like the veterans will lead the backfield. But
of course.
If Spiller gets taken, it'd probably be the 2nd round, I would guess, maybe 3rd. Houston, I feel like they would say
in the 1st.
We did talk about this last week, where I feel like if a team like Houston, who has that many holes, for some reason took running back, I would almost think to kind of like wean him in, like we saw like Jonathan Taylor got used his first year, where he didn't really do much the first half of the year, and at the end of it, he was pretty good. Come save him for when they're starting to get better. So. Yeah, that'd be good.
Good spot. It's tough for a team like Houston that, like you said, has all those holes. I could see them pull a Carolina and just draft all defense the entire draft, and they still have a bunch of holes on defense.
Mm-hmm.
It's tough.
Right. Me too, Josh. I just traded for Marlon Mack in a league. I traded a 3rd rounder for him, so I hope he gets his 2nd go. Leone put in Bryce Hall there.
Good pick.
For my 3rd pick. Like I was just saying, I think these guys are pretty equal. Bryce Hall is a running back first rather than a back out of the backfield, but he shows that he can still catch the ball. So I like his touchdown upside, especially inside the 10-yard line, 5-yard line, things like that. He's a big enough guy where he's going to get those touches. There's just a handful of guys here I think you can just easily pick, and you're not mad about it. Leone, what do you think about that one?
Yeah, no, that would have been my pick. I think that's solid. To me, Bryce Hall is a more complete running back. I have him ahead of Spiller for that reason. Maybe he can't catch the ball as well as Spiller, can't be as shifty, but I think he does everything really good. And I see him as a 3-down type back more so than I see Spiller in that sense. I think he's the perfect type of running back to take in these rookie drafts where they can get way more valuable throughout the season or, later into their career. And I think he's more of a home run type hit because he could be way more valuable than I think Spiller has the potential to be.
Yeah, the ball security with Hall is about the only thing that is a pause for concern for me. But it's not enough that I would still be taking him top 3, most likely. Anyway, he's had a lot of tread on the tires in college, and Iowa State gave him the ball. So that it is what it is. Running back shelf life isn't that long anyway. But yeah, I love Bryce Hall. I think he's definitely more of a zone guy than anything. He could get miscast going somewhere where he has to do some stuff out of the backfield catching. I think he just give him the ball, let him look, go. He's got good vision for checking the backside and figuring out which hole to hit and just let him go.
Now, Brad, you said earlier with Burks, you would take running back. So if this was your top 12 so far, Burks would still be on the board, correct? Not selected.
I don't hate Burks being the first wide receiver taken. I probably would go running back then Burks, so he would probably be drafted at this point either way. I love Burks as a player.
Okay.
So I'm probably not far off from this either way.
Okay.
Right. I don't normally pick this high because I'm just so good anyway. So.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. You're used to picking 10, 11, 12. Yeah.
I think I picked 1-1 in one of the RotoHeat Superflexes.
All right, Leone, who are you taking?
Next pick. All right. My pick is Garrett Wilson, wide receiver, Ohio State. Let me.
It's not like you're actually drafting him in real life.
I am. Yeah. Okay. Garrett Wilson. There it goes. Can you guys hear the sound effects in there or no?
You can barely hear it.
I can hear it. I can hear it through your headset.
All right. So, all right, let's pause that. Okay. So Garrett Wilson, I think he has nice size. The thing I like about Garrett Wilson is the same reason why.
Nice
size. I like Bryce Hall and Garrett Wilson for very similar reasons. That's why I personally have them ranked lower than Treylon Burks. I don't think they have that enormous upside to ever be like the number 1 overall type player. But I think they do everything really well. And that's why Garrett Wilson, for me, is the second best wide receiver in this class because he's almost like a can't miss player. Like he can catch the ball, he can run routes. Yeah, he's not the best route runner. He doesn't have the best speed, the best size, but you know what? It doesn't matter because he does everything really good. And when you're picking at the early parts of these drafts, yeah, maybe I want to swing for the fences with someone like Treylon Burks, but I also want to make sure I get someone that I know is going to be good, that I know is going to contribute. And that's why I have Garrett Wilson as my second favorite running back in this draft class.
Bryce, what do you think about him?
I have Garrett Wilson as my number 4 wide receiver, and that's due to I would prefer the other Ohio State wide receiver over him. I think Chris Olave has really high football IQ, really, really good hands, and really good route running. I would say he's arguably the best route runner in this class. But Garrett Wilson's a playmaker, right? I think he's the number 2 on that playmaker scale. I think Treylon Burks is the best playmaker, and Garrett Wilson's number 2. He just makes big plays. If you watched Ohio State last year, he was making them. Stroud gave him all the opportunities to make them. Right. And I think that Garrett Wilson benefited huge from Stroud taking over, right? Because Olave was Fields' guy. And then Stroud comes in, and Garrett Wilson and Jackson Smith and Jigba were the guys. And Olave got pushed aside when he was probably potentially going to be the number 1 wide receiver taken in this draft class if he didn't have a somewhat disappointing season.
I don't want to interrupt you, but I am.
But you are.
You're saying Chris Olave gets pushed aside. Look, I don't want guys that get pushed aside. I want the guys that excel.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair. That's fair to say, but I think Chris Olave has the tools. There's a difference between having the tools to be successful in college football and having the tools to be really successful in the NFL. And I think that route running, the hands, I think he's got really good football IQ. If you listen to him talk about football, it's almost like maybe not quite as smart as Cooper Kupp about it, but he's very intelligent. And I think it's gonna show on the field once he gets that connection with his quarterback and stuff like that. So I like Garrett Wilson. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying there's 2 guys I like a little bit more.
All right. Garrett Wilson, if somebody told me that a team like the Jets, because Wilson made one of his top 30 visits with the Jets, same with Chris Olave, they've been looking at a lot of the receivers. If you tell me that Robert Saleh brings in Garrett Wilson and puts him in the Debo role where they're using him jet sweeps and they're getting him manufactured receptions behind the line of scrimmage and letting him use that 4.3 speed to make some big plays happen. Like that excites me about a guy like Garrett Wilson. If you put him in a role where you're giving him the ball close to the line of scrimmage and letting him make the big play and getting those touches that way, I think that's really beneficial for a guy like that. Olave is by far a better route runner than Wilson, but Wilson is by far better big play threat. Depending on what you're looking for with your fantasy, this could take you in very different directions. Like I have no problem taking either receiver because of what they could be. But I think if a team like the Jets grabs any of these top receivers, I think you have to temper the expectations while Zach Wilson's growing, because we saw year 1 wasn't living his best life. It's going to take some time for these guys. So if you're drafting in the 4, the 5, the 6 spot, and you say, you know what, I'm going to take whatever guy the Jets draft because he's probably going to be one of their top receivers with Corey Davis, just know that year 1 is probably not going to be great. He's probably wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4 on a roster in year 1. So just putting that out there. Wilson, the player, amazing. Definitely a first-round pick. Definitely probably a top 4 to 6 pick. Do I take him over Olave? I don't think it really matters because they're both valuable fantasy assets. Like I'll take Chris Olave here at the 5 if you want to put him in because I think they're interchangeable in my mind. Olave's a great route runner. Both of them have very good hands. You don't see them drop a lot unless it's a badly thrown ball. And we saw some of those throughout the last couple of years. Wilson and Olave are both very talented receivers. I could easily make the case that you see Drake London here, Kenneth Walker here, and there's a few players that should be drafted at this point or coming up really quickly. And they're all going to be nice fantasy pieces.
Yeah, I'm glad you took Olave here just because it's topical. I do think in a lot of drafts, these 2 players are going to go back to back. Olave has a lot of hype right now. And I think it's warranted. He does run really good routes. My issue, again, like when I interrupted Bryce, my issue was when I pick a player in the first round, early first round especially, I want a guy that just shows he's the man throughout college because it's not going to get any easier in the NFL. So can that translate? Can he get better with other aspects of the game? I think so. I think especially in a PPR league, running routes is extremely important in the NFL. I'm not saying that I disagree with the pick at all, but the reason why I have Wilson ahead of him is just because I think that he's more NFL ready. That's all.
Yeah, I don't hate it. I think either one of these receivers has been in the spotlight long enough that a team is going to say, okay, it's not too big for them to step in and get some significant playing time early because they've been in big games. Ohio State heavily involved in the college football playoffs in these guys' careers enough that they've had to face some tough competition. And when it comes to the player your quarterback is most comfortable with, that does just because Fields was more comfortable with Olave, they just had the reps together in practice. They spent enough time together that they knew where each other was going to be. That just wasn't the same with Stroud. So Stroud went towards the big play guy.
Yeah.
Wilson could get out, get away, make some deep things happen. They look to him. I don't knock either way for sure, but
And I wonder if Olave has so much hype right now because he's been on the fantasy radar for so many years now. I think most people thought he was going to come out last year in the last NFL draft. He decided to stay another year. It kind of hurt him. He didn't really have a crazy good year. But I wonder if maybe that's why he has so much buzz. It's just because most people know who he is because he's been on the radar for so long. Brad, I know you do a lot of Debbie stuff. Do you think that's playing into this a little bit, or do you think that's just insignificant?
I think there's always things to be taken away from that when a guy goes back and it doesn't look as good. Or in this class, he's healthy. Like some of these other top guys, Wilson, Jamison, London, they're not healthy. Olave doesn't get hurt the same way. He's done a good job keeping himself safe. All of it plays into the narrative, into the story that all of us on the outside looking in will build and say, hey, this is why this guy's going to get drafted before everyone else. But in the end, we don't know half as much as we think we know. And even the experts on the inside don't know half as much as they know. You have to pick the style of player you want. And these are two very different styles of player. It just is what it is. Bryce, what do you make all this? I think you're so close to the team there. And
we act like people act like Wilson really outshined Olave, but Olave had more touchdowns. Garrett Wilson had 100 more yards and 5 more receptions. So these guys were neck and neck. Again, like Anthony said, these guys are going to be probably taken one after the other. You could argue they pretty much scored within 4 or 5 fantasy points of each other. I didn't really look at the rushing stats, but receiving wise, they were a whole season like 10 points off. Yeah, I just like Chris Olave because again, the route running is the main thing for me, and I think that is something that carries over into the NFL better than just playmaking ability. We've seen big play people make it to the NFL and just nothing happens. N'Keal Harry is my horrible example that I have to look at every day. Go ahead and grab Drake London here for me. This is an easy pick. Personally, I think that this guy has that same frame of Mike Evans. He's a big-bodied guy, can go up and get it. I think he falls probably mid first round, I would say. So we're going to see him in a somewhat decent situation. I wouldn't be surprised to see like a team like maybe like the Cowboys, or not Cowboys, but the Cowboys have been apparently thinking about getting them. But there's just like those teams in the middle of the draft are good teams. So I like the landing spot potential there. What do you guys think about Drake London? Leonie, for you?
Yeah. For me, London was the slam dunk pick here. There are some other guys that we're going to talk about soon that could offer some more upside. One in particular, I think it's all in our mind right now. But even still, especially early part in the draft, like I said before, you want to get guys that are going to be contributors out from the gate. Yeah. And London is that. He's that. He's just like Garrett Wilson. He offers big playability. And I do agree. I think all of these wide receivers that we've taken so far, I think they're going to land in good spots. I know we sometimes think that it will happen. It doesn't. But I have a good feeling. There's so many good quarterbacks in the league right now and there's so many teams that need a wide receiver or need a second wide receiver. So I do think that London is the right pick here, and I do expect him to land in a very favorable spot as well. Brad?
Yeah, he is your prototypical big body physical receiver. He's a basketball guy, football guy. He's one of those, you almost feel like he's been bred and raised and ready for the NFL for a starting outside receiver role for a long time. So it won't surprise me if he goes mid to late first. You've seen a lot of the room. I read today, Texans, my Lions, plenty of teams have interest in him. And it's teams with first round picks that could be mid to late, early second round pick type position. So I don't hate you taking him. I would, if somebody argued that he's the top receiver in the class and you're drafting him in the top 5, it wouldn't surprise me. He fits the bill. And for a lot of these, that's why I like to wait till after the draft for all my drafts, because a lot of these, I like to just see the landing spot. Does it move guys around a lot on my board? No, not typically, but maybe a little bit. If Burks goes somewhere where he's not going to be number one, and it's just hard to see him getting there. Maybe I think about it, Drake London instead, or Wilson, or maybe one of the backs.
I think you could rearrange these first 6 picks in any order, and you couldn't really argue it.
Mm-hmm.
I think these are typically right now, before the NFL draft, these 6 players are going to go like probably top 6 in your draft. Maybe sprinkle Kenneth Walker in there or Jamison Williams here and there, but I think overall these 6 guys are going to take over those first 6 spots. So next pick, Leone.
Yeah, I agree with that. And that's another reason too, like you said early on, if you're in the 101, if you can trade back and get a couple early firsts for it, I would do it. So a lot of people overvalue the 101. This is a draft where it will be overvalued because like you just said, I could see Treylon Burks going 101. I could also see him going 107.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you're dead set on a guy and you got the first pick, you can go for it. I would trade back. I would scoop up some extra value myself.
I will say, just before we go to this next pick, I just made a trade. I had landed pick 102 in a deal during the season last year. And March 31st, we had a new owner join this 14-team league.
Did you take advantage of the new guy?
I did. So it's a 14 league. I'm in other leagues with this guy, so I know what he likes and what he thinks. But it's a 1 QB, but we're converting to Superflex next year. I just won the championship. My quarterbacks are not strong. I've got Tannehill, Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold. It's not strong. So I had the 102 from a deal I made. I took 102, 302, 312, and a future second and turned it into Trevor Lawrence, CEH, and Kadarius Toney.
Oh, beautiful.
I'm perfectly fine with that type of deal. So if you are one of those top few picks and whether you've earned it or you've traded for it, don't be afraid to pull a less need and say, FTP, man, sell them picks. Who cares? Get yourself some players that can help you. I'm a championship team in this league, so I was really focused on how can I get quarterbacks? And that's what 102 was going to be, was a quarterback. So if I can go get Trevor Lawrence, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I would take Trevor Lawrence
over Malik. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I would take Trevor Lawrence over any of the rookie quarterbacks in this class. So
easily. And just because he had a rough year, like people are selling short on some of these guys. And even Zach Wilson, I would go trade, 1, 2. I would take him over the quarterbacks. Fields, I would consider it. I mean, him and Malik Willis, that's where I start thinking, all right, who am I taking over? Mac Jones, I would probably take over any quarterback in this class. Him and Fields are the 2 where I'd start to consider. But
how about Trey Lance?
Probably. I'd probably take him over the guys in this class too. He should be fine in San Francisco.
Yeah, I agree.
So, sorry, Leone, go ahead and make your picks up. I want to throw that.
Come on, guys. Let me pick. It's been like an hour since I did my last pick. Let's see. How do I feel like an old man trying to figure out this?
We pooped on it too, the Garrett Wilson.
What's that? I know, man. He was a dog.
I just prefer this to a.
No, I know. We're good. Okay, so I'm gonna pick Kenneth Walker.
Not really surprising, right?
I think it's between him or another wide receiver. Not to give it away.
Yeah,
who I think is probably gonna be the next.
That's what I thought you were taking. I thought you were taking the wide receiver.
Yeah, for me it's Kenneth Walker. I just think that Bryce Hall. I just think he's a complete type running back. He doesn't catch as well, but he does run really fast. He's quick. He has good vision. He's very balanced. And I see him and this is before he's on a team. So I'm kind of having to just hope he goes to a really good spot. Kenneth Walker, mark my words, if he gets drafted into a good spot, like maybe the Colts or the Falcons or a team that really needs a running back, he's going to shoot up draft boards. He's the one guy.
The Colts, then.
What's that?
Definitely not the Colts.
Oh, sorry. I meant to say.
You meant the Falcons.
No, and who's Marlon Mack with now?
Houston. Okay.
The Texans. Excuse me. Sorry. I was thinking Marlon Mack, and
that's
mixed me up.
Fair.
So he's the type of guy that's going to shoot up draft board if he lands on a good spot. I said the same thing about CEH. He was, prior to getting drafted, he was way down draft board similarly. Granted, looks like that was the right call. Maybe we'll see. But I do think Kenneth Walker has the type of profile where if he's in a good spot, he's going to climb up draft boards. And that's why I think right now at 107, I think it's a slam dunk pick. And the other players available still, I think are really risky. I don't see Walker as being that risky myself.
Yeah, I think you just alluded to it, and don't take like draft spot and so serious when he's talking about like a good team. Almost look at a landing spot as in usage. Yeah, opportunities to get more touches. People freaking out when CH got drafted by Kansas City, and I avoided him too. I took Jonathan Taylor before him in a couple of drafts. And just because you're on that high scoring offense and your touchdown upside might be through the roof doesn't mean your usage is. And we're seeing that with CEH. Right, he's not getting like a ton of touches, especially not in. But I like Kenneth Walker. You said it best. He's well-rounded. He's, it reminds me of how Le'Veon Bell played when he was with Michigan State. He's not really overly great at anything, but he just does everything really well. Patience, vision, balance, strength, all those things are things you want in a running back. I think this is a really good safe pick that could have turnover right away. And if you're sitting at the 7th spot, your team might only be like one piece away, and running backs are thin right now, especially in this draft. So I think that's great value.
And when you look at a guy like Kenneth Walker, look at what he did to the team around him. Michigan State was rebuilding. They brought in Mel Tucker just the year before, and that team was terrible. Then year 2 of the rebuild, you're like, okay, the expectations are a little more, but you still keep them low. And then Kenneth Walker shows up and just takes over. The offense runs through him. And it didn't look too big for him. He handled it just fine. He ran all over Michigan. In the big games, he was the focal point. I mean, teams at the NFL are going to see that and going to foam at the mouth for it. They're going to go real excited seeing a guy like that because the spotlight's not too big for him, and you can put it on his back, and he can carry the weight of the team if need be. Nowadays, not a lot of teams try to run through just one running back, but teams are going to look at him and be excited by the possibility that, hey, in a pinch, if we need to give this guy 20, 30 carries, he did it just fine in college. He was running dudes over. So,
right.
Like I said earlier, Walker would be in the consideration for top running back with the other two. Put these 3 running backs in whatever order you like, and it doesn't surprise me. All right, so receiver-wise, obviously I got to go with Jamison Williams next. That was just the next obvious choice. For him, I think it'll be interesting to see what a team wants to do with him. For some of these other guys, I could see them being inside, outside, used as kind of more of a weapon. The Debo type role. Williams, I think, is more of you got to have him closer to the line as a slot and do some of the things out of the backfield, sure. But I don't know that I see him beating some of those more physical, bigger, stronger corners at the next level. I'm not saying he can't. I'm just saying I would see a team peg him as more their wide receiver 2, their kind of gadgety guy, more than I think he's an outside guy. So that's why I would probably have him as wide receiver 4 in this draft class. I think the 4 we have before him makes sense, but that isn't knocking Williams. I think Williams is a really nice piece, and I think it'll be fun at the next level. But I could see him easily being one of those guys that it's feast or famine every week with him, where you're getting 100 yards and a touchdown, or you're getting 3 for 30 because he just isn't getting a ton of action. So, what do you think, Leone?
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. That's actually why I would take George Pickens ahead of him. George Pickens is really falling down the draft board because of his injury concern. But
it's a pretty big concern.
I understand that. Williams has his own injury concerns as well, and has all these other question marks that you just listed off, whereas Pickens doesn't have any of those other concerns, just injury. So for me, that's why I would prefer Pickens. Granted, if I'm picking here 8, 9, 10, and if I think I have a really good team and I want to swing for the fences, I think Pickens is more of a swing for the fence type guy than Jamison Williams. So I like your pick. I have them very close. In fact, I have them side by side in my rankings, but I just prefer Pickens for that reason. But I still do, and I'm not going to argue against it. I think you hit the nail on the head with everything you said.
Bryce?
Yeah, Jamison Williams, I mean, this is a fast Alabama wide receiver that's hurt, right? And we saw the same thing with Waddle last year, and he fell in drafts, and the people at the end are reaping the rewards. Now, Jaylen Waddle is a much better route runner than Jamison Williams. Jamison Williams is my main concern. You actually drafted him right where I would rank him. I have him as my 5th best wide receiver in this class, and it's only because his route running is sloppy. He rounds a lot of stuff. He uses that speed, which is not going to be as the corners are faster in the NFL. Everybody's faster. Right. So he's not going to be able to rely on that as well. So he's going to have to really work on that route running. But I think he's got the tools to be successful in the NFL. I would like to see him closer to the line of scrimmage. I think he has more PPR value there.
Do we think someone like Henry Ruggs is a good comp? I know they both played at at Alabama. Is that a fair type of comp? Like just kind of like a fast type of wide receiver that's going to be inconsistent at best?
I never really saw Henry Ruggs do much underneath. He was your big play guy, where I think Jamison Williams will be more involved in the underneath game.
Okay.
Alabama is known for running crosses and slants, and their fast receivers do everything else. We saw it with Devontae Smith, Jaylen Waddle before him. So I don't know if I'd compare him quite to Ruggs. It's almost like he's a mixture between Ruggs and Waddle for me.
Okay.
Like, and he's a little bit better than Ruggs, but definitely not as good as Waddle in my opinion.
I feel you.
So
that's good.
So you can actually put George Pickens in here for me.
Oh, great pick.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with everything you said.
Somebody's copying off Leone's board.
I think Pickens. But I like Williams better than Pickens. Unlike you, I think Pickens lands with the Bears or New England. I'm like very confident that is one of his two landing spots. And if that is, he immediately becomes the best wide receiver on that team, in my opinion. Devontae Parker is the best wide receiver for New England. Pickens, I would much rather have him. If he's healthy, I think we see him in the top half of this draft. He's physical. He's tall. He's got speed, hands, everything. It's just, can he stay healthy? And to be fair, Deebo Samuel was hurt all in his college career, and now look what he's doing in the NFL. So players get healthy. There's a next level of nutritionists, trainers, physical therapists in the NFL that the college organizations don't have. And so I'm hoping that George Pickens benefits from that and really unlocks that skill set that he and the potential that he has to be successful in the NFL. Brad.
Okay, I love George Pickens. Like before the injuries, he's my wide receiver one. If you'd asked me Debbie-wise 2 years ago, Pickens was the guy I was going after. I struggle with taking him as a first-round receiver just because of Cody.
He would shoot up the draft boards if that happened.
If he goes to the Chiefs, if he goes to the Chiefs. But with what they did with Juju and having McCole, Pickens doesn't seem like the fit here. It's in my mind, if they're going, his injuries are a big concern. When you still have guys like Johan Dotson and David Bell still sitting on the board, yes, Pickens is a better athlete when healthy, when on the field. But you could argue that Bell is just as good running routes, and you could argue that Dotson is a more dynamic playmaker with the ball in his hands. So it's okay. So if a team's on the board at the back half of the first, early to mid-second, and they see these types of players sitting on the board at the same time, are they really going to weigh the guy who is off the field more than he's on the field higher than some of these other guys that have some of the traits that he has, but maybe doesn't have it all together? I mean, that's where I wrestle with it. When I'm building my board pre-draft, that's where I sit at. So would I take Pickens here? No, I would probably go with Bell or Jahan Dotson, not Moore or Watson or Shakir. Those guys are still mid to late second picks for me.
Where's Mechie here?
I like Mechie too, but he's another one. He's another one that you have to have in the back half of the first, in the conversation at least. So him and Pickens, I like them both so much, but it's tough. That's a tough call for me. I think I loved it because it's a bold pick, and I think it's a really interesting conversation. But I don't know, man. I think for me right now, it's Bell. Then probably you could do Pickens or Mechie. I would probably go Mechie just because I know he's a little bit more healthy than Pickens. Then Dotson.
Yeah. I would say landing spot for all those receivers you just mentioned could heavily sway
absolutely
that pick right there. Like best landing spot. Like if Cody said Pickens goes to the Chiefs, I don't think he lasts that long.
I would say Pickens goes to the Chiefs. People will put him in the conversation for one.
I think you're right. He's not really a great fit because like he's a physical receiver, and I think that they already have that with Juju. I think like a faster guy, Jamison Williams, would be a better fit for the Chiefs because they just lost a lot of speed. They try to replace it, but
I can't see them drafting an early end of round 1, end of round 2 receiver.
Even with two picks,
receivers.
With 2 picks, you don't think?
Maybe. I mean, they could. I think, but with some of the other areas of need,
right
on the defensive side, they still need some safety help. They still need, some linebacker help potentially. I don't know. It's not the biggest need because the receiving core is with adding a guy like Juju in. I think they'll be okay if they wanted to look elsewhere early in the draft. But
yeah,
I don't get paid.
Definitely could use some. They could use some secondary. That's for sure.
Tons of second. I could see them go corner safety, and it wouldn't surprise me in the least. They won't, but I could see it.
Yeah.
And that's where we lost Anthony.
No, I think I agree with you guys. I think. Oh yeah, well, that's true. I could see Pickens going to like Green Bay though. I think he would. Mm-hmm. I would think he would fly up.
You think he goes day 2 or day 1? I think he most certainly goes day 2.
Man,
I
day
think
2
because
feels
of the
sweet.
injury concerns, he's gonna slip. Yeah,
So you think he'll be back half a day or this round 2 late? Is
round
that
2
what
or
you're thinking
3.
then?
Yeah,
Okay.
round 2 or
I think
3 is.
I don't see him getting past round. I don't see him getting past round 2, pick 42. I don't see New England passing up on him because they're most certainly going secondary on their first pick. I can almost guarantee it.
Sure.
Or trading back.
Great pick, though. I like that. Good job. Okay. So my pick, I'm next, I believe. Brad mentioned him, but my guy here is Johan Dotson. So I do Pickens more for upside. Like Brad said, he is a very complete player if he can be healthy. So I know there's a big question mark there. But Jahan Dotson, I think he has good hands. He runs really good routes. He's smart. It's like I think he's a really good wide receiver. I think obviously it's going to depend on landing spot a little bit because he's the type of guy that could totally get buried on a depth chart for his rookie season. And in the first round, at least in my opinion, when you go for a first round type player, you really want to make sure they're contributing out of the gate, at least a little bit. But I think Jahan Dotson could be one of those types of guys like Pickens and maybe even Jamison Williams that has a real slow start to the season for a number of different reasons for each of them respectively. I do want to just point out here, I think there's a clear teardrop here at 6. And I don't know if we talked about that before or not, but I think all these guys after Drake London, I think Walker, Jamison Williams, Pickens, and now Jahan Dotson, it's just a huge teardrop for me. I don't know if you guys agree with that assessment or not, but like Jamison Williams, George Pickens, Jahan Dotson, yeah, I have them ranked similarly, but at the same time, couldn't you just interchange these guys in a sense? What do you think, Brad?
Yeah, when it comes to draft boards, the tier breaks and things like that, I don't normally subscribe to when I'm granularly in my leagues doing my drafts because everybody in your league drafts different.
Yeah.
Everything's so drastically different even from one league to the next. Even if you have the same owner in different leagues, it's like all bets are off. So yes, there's absolutely a clear line of delineation. Okay, there's some difference here, but for me, especially with guys that I've been talking to that are drafting their rookie drafts pre-NFL draft, I tell people target the guy you like, the skill set you think is best suited for your team, and go from there. If you're drafting after the draft, work your board. If you really love one of those top 5-6 guys and you're determined to get one, don't be afraid to trade some picks and go get your guy. If you're really uncomfortable with what the back half of the first round is, so be it. Come away from the draft happy with what you've done, whatever it is, whether it's getting one guy, getting 5 guys, whatever. So, Bryce, what's your take?
I think there's a teardrop after 6. I think it's like 1A, 1 through 6 is 1A. And then I think 7 and 8 are 1B. And then I would say like a 2 after that. I would put like Pickens, Dotson, Mechie, Bell all in a tier 2.
Yeah.
So you're good with the Dotson pick then in this spot?
Yeah, I don't hate it. I don't like it. I don't dislike it. I think I prefer Mechie just by a little bit. But again, those guys, like you just said, like to me, Pickens, Dotson, Mechie, Bell are all interchangeable.
Yeah.
All those dudes are interchangeable. So,
yeah, I agree.
Yeah, to an extent, I agree with you.
I hate what Cody put in the chat because I was going to say that Dotson is a more sure-handed version of Deontay Johnson in my mind. Not as big, but he's a really good route runner. But Dotson does not drop the ball. Like, you just don't see him drop much.
Yeah,
so
very good hands.
He's one of those guys that I think could slide down the draft board just because he is on the smaller side, but he's really going to pay dividends to whoever gets him because he's a really good route runner and nothing gets out of his hands. Like, he does not drop the ball.
I agree. So you would take Dotson over Pickens then, is that fair?
I would think about it for sure. I definitely, when it goes back to my heart says Pickens is the best receiver of this kind of group of receivers we've been talking about. But in reality, you haven't seen Pickens on the field all that much.
Yeah, it's interesting. You said Pickens was so high on your Devy radar, and then with these injuries, he's fallen so far down. I just think it's interesting. I don't do Devy, and
well, and some of it is the class of receiver has upped. When I was really high on Pickens, he's a really strong multiple star, 4 or 5 star prospect coming in, looking really good. And his first season with the Bulldogs was awesome. for what we were expecting. But some of these other guys have stepped up. 3 years ago, we weren't talking Garrett Wilson the same way. Chris Olave wasn't a household name the same way. And so some of these pieces they've gotten better, and Pickens has not. You just haven't seen him on the field to see what development there is. And I'm not saying that Pickens isn't still the best receiver in this class. I'm just saying there's enough concerns about him that I would consider guys that are maybe a step below him, or maybe not, doesn't have the well-rounded view in my mind of what the player could be at the next level. But that's the fun thing about fantasy, right? We take our guys and we either look smart or we take N'Keal Harry. And and I did that.
I didn't take him anywhere. So
I was a JJ Arcega-Whiteside guy, a N'Keal Harry guy, all these big receivers, and I'm like, nope, bad decision. And to top it off, I'll finish here at 12.
Now we're on 11.
Oh, we are at 11, aren't we?
Yeah,
We're on 11.
I got the last one.
You got the last one. I'm gonna take quarterback. Just say we got a quarterback in here. We'll throw Malik Willis in here. I don't hate taking a quarterback at the back half of the first round in a 1 QB because you really can take best player available, whatever your favorite player is. Here, the conversation is: do you take Mechie? Do you take your favorite running back that's left? Or was it Rashard White or James Cook? Yeah. You could probably let him slide a little further. If you're not strong with quarterback, you take a guy like Malik Willis, and maybe you get a Lamar Jackson type player where he's giving you a lot of rushing upside. Maybe you don't. But if you're picking at 10, 11, 12, you're a playoff team anyway, so you're probably built to make a bad choice if need be. But I would say if you're picking at this spot in this draft class, trade back. I mean, why not trade out of this? Give me a 2023 first and something in this draft to throw on the back half of my roster. Sure, why not? But I like Malik Willis as a player. I think you see the big arm, you see the escapability, you see a lot of things that an NFL team is going to fall in love with. Why not? Bryce, what do you think about a quarterback at the back half of 1 QB?
Yeah, I like that you mentioned it. It can be like a bad choice, but with a lot of potential, like really good upside. Malik Willis is going to be a dual threat quarterback if he's going to be successful in the NFL. He's got little mechanics. I knew he's got a problem with padding the ball, and I guess that's a big issue with a lot of people. Like gives corners that hair second to get there a little bit more, but quarterback coaches can eventually fix that. I'm sure. Yeah. So I like the upside, and at this pick. Yeah, I'd probably try and trade it away if you felt good. But if your quarterback was like, the rest of your team's really strong and your quarterback's just, this guy has like the upside to really put your team in that next stratosphere. So, yeah, I like it. I think he gets drafted immediately and becomes the starter of wherever he lands, more than likely. Brad, I've seen some mock drafts have him getting drafted by the Lions. He wouldn't start week 1 if he was with the Lions, I would guess. But it wouldn't surprise me to see him take over halfway through the season.
Yeah, if they're not doing well, and why not?
Yeah, they're more than likely not going to be doing well. Let's be honest. Sorry, but they're just probably not.
I'll say in this NFC North with what's going on, I don't know.
Yeah, you're right. They have a better receiving core than the Packers, at least. It's not saying much, but
today, I mean,
for now.
Yeah,
but yeah, I like it. It's risky. I probably would still go safer, add some wide receiver depth, but I can't blame you for taking the risk. Leone?
With all due respect, Brad, I hate this pick. In a 1 QB league, quarterbacks are always overvalued. I think you should swing for the fences and try to get a wide receiver, a running back who's going to be more valuable in the long run. Quarterbacks, we saw it last year. Guys like Tana, Derek Carr, and all these guys, you can get a quarterback easy. You can trade for a quarterback easy. Even Sam Darnold was a quarterback 1 for half the year last year. So I don't like spending first-round rookie picks on quarterbacks for that reason. In a 1 QB league, quarterbacks are a dime a dozen. You can get a quarterback another way. You don't have to spend a first-round draft pick to do that.
But can you get a potentially elite option at quarterback?
And
that's the tough thing.
And to answer your question, I think there are easier ways to get one. Yes, I think you could trade for Trey Lance easier than just needing to spend a first-round pick for in a 1 QB league. Just trade if you want to go for a quarterback like that. Trade for Trevor Lawrence. Trade for Trey Lance.
Take this pick and trade it to a guy who's got a quarterback.
Well, certainly, that wasn't this isn't the purpose of this draft. So I'm not going to dog your pick. We can, in theory, pretend you tried to do all that. But yeah, I know. So, but but exactly. If you're in the end of the first and your team, like if you really need a quarterback in a 1 QB league, you really need a quarterback. I would rather try to trade for one like Trevor Lawrence, Trey Lance, Justin Fields. I think they'd be cheaper than this pick right now. With this pick, I'd be looking at David Bell, maybe James Cook, someone that I think offers way more upside than a quarterback does in a 1 QB league. I know Rick, if he's at home watching, he's going to agree with me on that. Rick and I go back and forth on a lot of things. I know that's one thing we always agree on. But I understand what you're saying. I understand Willis has the dual threat, could be a huge PPR. I'm sorry, a rushing upside type quarterback. I understand the logic. I think of all quarterbacks, he's the right one. So I just think it's too early in a 1 QB league to take a quarterback in the first round. That's just my opinion. Brad, rebuttal?
Where do you start taking quarterbacks in a 1 QB with a lead upside?
Yeah, I would say maybe in this draft class, mid-second round, I'd consider it. But by then, it always happens. Every rookie draft, whenever I start thinking, oh, okay, like last year, for example. So, yeah, I would start thinking about Trevor Lawrence right now. Oh, he's off the board. Yeah. Trey Lance off the board. To me, it always happens. I don't know the last rookie draft I did in a 1 QB league where I actually drafted a quarterback other than like third round, fifth option type guys, because I'm always looking for more upside positional player personally.
Follow-up question. Are you winning in any of those leagues?
Of course, baby. Of course.
Just wondering. You're talking mid-second when you're picking, so that doesn't sound like a win.
In a 1 QB league, yeah, I trade for a lot of picks. But in a 1 QB league, I never draft a quarterback in the first round. Just never.
All right, Bryce, round us off. What are we doing?
I'll touch on that in a second, but go ahead and put John Mechie for my last pick. For the last pick. But to give Brad a little bit of credit, the last quarterbacks that were taken in a couple years. So last year, let's not count this past year because they haven't really stepped in as a rookie year. But Joe Burrow and Herbert were probably the first two taken, right? The year before that was Kyler Murray, and then I think Baker. And I don't think they were drafted that high in any. And then the year before that was Holmes and Watson, right? With this the last QBs. It seems like potentially a first-round QB, even in this league, or in this format, could potentially be. I would consider all those guys I just mentioned, Baker Mayfield, obviously, to be elite options in fantasy. But Leona, your points are right. I feel like you could get a cheaper guy with the same upside instead of taking it at that pick. So it's definitely risky. But John Mechie, again, a guy that I think is going to be in a good landing spot. I see him going, obviously, second round late, probably. Mid to late, so he could go to one of those wide receiver needy teams, New England, Green Bay, the Chiefs, and I think it'd be all good fits where he could potentially be a guy that immediately makes an impact on your team. He's not a really flashy player, I will say. He doesn't have burners or anything like that, but he's a guy that catches the ball through the middle. He runs good routes. He's tough. So he does things, but just not really a big playmaker guy with big speed. So he doesn't have that flash that you'd probably want. But at the end of the first round, your team is probably pretty dang good, and you could take a guy that could be a really good wide receiver. I see him having high wide receiver too upside. Maybe not his first year, but even his second year. So a guy would be willing to sit on and wait. Brad, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't have a problem, Mechie. The player, when he bounces back, he'll still be able to bounce back just fine. Like, this guy is extremely dynamic. Just the next big Alabama receiver to come out. And profile is very similar to a Waddle and Ruggs type with speed and being able to be a game breaker. Taking him in the first round makes sense. He's one of those that you're going to have to wait a little bit on. I don't know that. I thought last I read he wasn't going to be ready for OTAs and probably late in a training camp at best. So
yeah, he and Jamison Williams got hurt like a week or two from each other or something.
Yep.
Yeah.
So there'll be a little while before you get him on the field, but that's okay. Yeah. There's enough receivers. It's not a big deal. Leone?
Yeah, I prefer David Bell myself. I just like his size and just the all-around kind of athlete Bell is. But I don't dislike the Mechie pick. I think it's a good pick. I certainly like it more than Willis. I don't know if I need to say that. No, but I think Mechie's a fine first-round pick and a first-round pick. But like a lot of these guys we're talking about, Dotson, Mechie, Bell, all these guys can go interchangeable in a sense. So I don't really think there's a wrong answer to any of these guys. So Mechie, I think, is a solid pick to end our first-round rookie mock draft.
Yeah, absolutely. We didn't have very many, a lot of wide receivers, very few running backs. And I think it's good to note that outside of these three running backs, I think it's a huge drop off personally. What you guys got? James Cook, probably fourth.
It's
I
going to
do.
be a lot of them. It's going
I
to be
do too.
landing spot dependent. Cook, White, a lot of these guys are talented, but who knows what teams are going to really think of them and where they're going to go. So
Yeah.
you're doing a disservice to the folks watching if you bring running back into the mid to late first round outside of these three.
Yeah, we're not going to see a lot of running backs go early in the draft, and I think even potentially one of these guys could be in the third round. So fourth, fifth round for some of those other guys. It's just not a very exciting running back class in comparison to wide receiver. It's heavy wide receiver. I think we can all agree. Light on everything else.
Yeah, so I guess to give a quick recap here of our draft, we got Treylon Burks at 101, Isaiah Spiller 102, Breece Hall 103, Garrett Wilson 104, Chris Olave 105, Drake London 106, Kenneth Walker 107, Jamison Williams 108, George Pickens, a little controversy, 109, Johan Dotson 110, Malik Willis 111, and then John Mechie 112. So good job, guys.
Yeah, I like it. I think it's a pretty good mock. I think we're going to see them all be a little bit similar. Maybe the back half is the only thing I think really changes until the draft happens. Absolutely.
Well, I guess
alrighty.
Stop sharing this draft board. Is that?
Yeah, I can do it.
All right.
And that's it's actually time. So that's going to be it. So everybody, make sure you subscribe. And Brad, thanks for joining us today.
Brad, thank you.
Last minute call off, but we were able to scramble and get you on here. So thank you for giving your wise advice. And other than that, we will see you guys next week. See you.